This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, I don't know what your weather's been like, but I have to tell you, we have had the most amazing mercurial, up and down, torrential rains, unbelievable hail, and then frickin' hot here in Colorado where I'm home based. And also my guest today is also home based. But it's been quite a roller coaster summer to say the least. And I just want more sun. I'm a sun girl. So with that, let's talk about sunning up. Some of the things that you need to do. And one of the things you need to bring the sunshine to who you are as an author, to who you are for indie publishing, to who your brand is all about your website. And I know I've done a few shows on websites. There's always twists and turns. There's new variances that we have. And my guest today, who has been a guest before on AuthorU, Guide to Book Publishing, has a really quite a pedigree behind him. I mean, he's an author himself. He has written several best-selling fiction books. Pactum is his latest. Also, Legan Awakening. Legon Awakening. And he's also one of my favorite graphic type people and heading up the visionary for Light and Sound Graphics. So what Nick Taylor brings to the party is really a huge, vast of experience, which what I really love to have for authors. And today's authors, because when you just work a lot of times with a one-trick pony, they really don't get what needs to be integrated and brought about. And website is just critical from the get-go. And I try to get all my authors, okay, so who's designing, what's going on, have you looked at other websites to see what clicks and what doesn't click and what you like and what you don't like, and what do you want to mimic, what's new on the horizon. And there's a lot new horizons in websites. So Nick, at our recent event that we did called How to Write a Book in Just 4 Weeks, nonfiction book, which is great fun, and we're doing the online session right now, and we'll start out the on-site session in the month of September for those of you who can get to Colorado for that. Otherwise, online again will be on in October. That Nick really introduced me to a new website, and I went, whoa, this new platform, this new variable that had a much less complicated introduction to it, plus to manipulate it as the author and put input in, and the cost variables were certainly attractive. So we're going to get into that today. So Nick Taylor is my guest. He is the founder and the key partner in Light and Sound Graphics. He is superb when it comes to ebook creation, and I send all my ebooks to Nick to create for our authors. So Nick, welcome back to AuthorU.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, so let's just jump into it because, I have to tell you, I still hear authors say, I really don't need a website. And to that point, either my mouth will drop open or maybe I get that headlight, in the eyes look, thinking, am I talking to someone stupid? Right. Why do people still think that?
I'm not sure where that mentality comes from. 5-6 years ago, you could kind of see where there's some people that were holding out, but it's 2015. And everything has a website. If nothing else, a website nowadays, people check just to see if you're a legitimate business to have a website. I know I've done that several times where someone will be a marketer or, I hear about a local business and I check to see if it has a website. If it doesn't, 9 times out of 10, I won't bother doing business with that company, even if it's down to being a restaurant, because it's like, oh, they're going to be gone in a few months. And usually they are. I don't know where this mentality, every now and then I'm like you, where someone will say, oh, I don't need a website. And usually at first I kind of chuckle being like, oh, yeah, no, you don't need a website. And then it's like, oh, no, you're being serious. So having a website is so huge. Like, gone are the days where your storefront was on Main Street in your little town, and that was your market. Now we're a global economy, and that storefront is your website.
It absolutely is your website, and that's why it has to have all the right bells and whistles on it, and not bells and whistles that everyone else has. I think one of the problems I see with a lot of websites is some people are afraid to have some creativity and originality, that they all feel they need to have a cookie cutter look to it. So as a designer, what do you say to that?
A lot of times what I'll say to people in that is, try to find out why they're scared to go away from something that's really vanilla, and also looking around at other authors that they're doing and saying, well, let's try to mimic some of the stuff that's out there. Let's try to create something that's visually appealing. One of the things that people are pushing back on really hard right now is we've been in a time when websites have been very text-heavy. There hasn't been a lot of graphic elements in there. I mean, there may have been some flash, but it was in there kind of spottily. And now we're moving over to where sites have a lot of images on them. And it's very dominant on these sites that there's a lot of images. And for a long time, we didn't do that because broadband speeds just weren't that great, right? It took a while to download this content. But now with most people starting to get broadband connections, and most folks who are viewing websites on smartphones, having, we complain about our phone's internet connection, but really compared to 10 years ago, it's screaming fast. And so having that, we're able to go a lot image heavier. And a lot of people have been kind of pushing back on that, not necessarily liking the idea, but when you're seeing a lot of the more forward-facing sites, they're very image heavy. They're very graphic heavy. Not overly so. They're not clunky, but they have a lot of those kind of feels about it. And just to bring something in that when someone looks at your site, it's going to give them a certain feel, a certain emotion, a certain message. We've said before that it's been said an image is worth 1,000 words. Well, okay, so you can have several images on your website right from the word go. How many words are you conveying doing that?
Exactly. And that's what's really important to look like. And images are key. I mean, there was some things that I was looking at dealing with the stats. And I have to ask you this, because when Google did their little crackdown back in April on whether your website was mobile friendly, do you have any idea how many people paid attention to that?
There was a handful of folks that were pretty readily freaking out. But I'm not sure how many people actually did pay attention to it. A lot of it was that a lot of people were on what's called a CMS, or a content management system, and some of the in which what we're talking about today, Squarespace is definitely a CMS. One of the pros of that is usually those tend to be a little bit more robust and have those features built in, but the con is not always. And I think a lot of folks that had CMS systems like WordPress or Joomla or Squarespace most certainly is mobile friendly right out of the box. Just assume that their website had it. And in a lot of those other sites, it's something extra that you have to have put in, and they didn't have it. So I don't think folks paid quite as much attention to it as they should have.
Well, I know that the stats dealing with the mobile side of things, that people better pay attention to it, because they're pretty stunning with the conversion factors. If you have anything to sell, and since we're talking to authors, we're assuming you're selling books. You want to sell books, but that, and that's what's really important. I mean that. For mobile, I mean, if your book is designed maybe for more of the Facebook crowd, for example, that I know that the recent stats show that almost, this is a stunning number, almost 80% of Facebook traffic comes from mobile devices now. Did you know that?
I think I'd heard similar numbers, yeah. Well, I think about it, when I check Facebook, I very rarely go to their desktop site. It's usually on my phone.
Yeah, people are going in very quickly and going that. So the reality is for all of our listeners that if whoever you're working with in designing your website, if they are not automatically making sure that it's mobile friendly and meets all the criteria, you're dealing with the wrong people. I'm just going to put that on the table. And that's one of the questions you need to ask.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of designers now, most of the time when we start designing now, we actually design with a mobile-first approach. And mobile-first means we're putting it used to be we put our primary effort into making this stunning desktop site, and tablet and mobile versions were afterthoughts. And now when we do a lot of designs, our mock-ups, our first things that we're doing is how are we going to build, especially the phone version, since tablet versions are generally very similar to the desktop version, how am I going to build the true phone mobile version of this site? How is this going to look? Because the bulk of the traffic is going to be going on that, and we know we can create pretty desktop sites.
Which is very cool. Which is actually kind of fun. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that are coming on, and that so we need the website because, one, it's the main street store of whoever and whatever you are. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, and then and plus it's where people can shop, or they can connect with you, or you can direct them to where they can shop and connect with you. All those things.
You can connect them to any of your other accounts, your mailing list. You can connect them to your blogs on your website 99 times out of 100, right? You can do all that, whatever their social media avenue they prefer or that they're transitioning over to, because people do change with social platforms. And then it's also something that you control. Like we used to use Facebook a lot, right? Facebook was really easy, really fantastic, and then they started changing stuff because they own it, and we didn't pay for it, so
they can do anything they want.
They can do whatever they want. Yeah, your website, you're that person. You can do whatever you want. So
which is very cool.
That's the other real benefit.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Nick, when we come back, here's what I want you to jump into. Let's get into some costs. Let's get into what CMS is. A lot of people are not familiar with that phrase. And and some of the things that go on with the whole SEO line via the website. With me is Nick Taylor. He's the CEO of lightandsoundgraphics.com. And the topic is websites.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602-866-3226. 1106 Design.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Sellinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, websites are always of interest to me, and I know right now for the big AuthorU-Your, which is a membership site, we are doing massive changes in the membership area that will be rolling out next month. And the amount of hours that we are putting in designing what we have to do to load up has been, I have to tell you, overwhelming. And that's not even the designers that are involved in it. So, Nick, how do you keep away from that overwhelm factor? I mean, let me just say this: if you bring in, let's say I'm Judith Briles and I have nothing, and I want a website, what would you tell me I need to get my act together so I can go forward?
When it comes to a website, I would ask you what you're looking to get from your website, what your marketing approach is, how you're planning on doing business. Because there's so many varieties of website out there. There's so many ways of going to market with them. And it's important to know how you're planning on going to market. And it's going to be a little different for every company. You know, you could have someone who's a very small, you have a bank, for example. They're completely different than an author, you know, and we need to know these things when we first start. So I would ask an author, what are you planning on doing? What's your digital strategy on here? How are you planning on doing business? And then from there, we would pick a CMS that would go, a website type design that would go well for them. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to tell them to go with Squarespace. Personally, as a designer, I'll take that. Or, we may look at another option that's out there, depending on the type of business that's out there. Some sites, some companies still do fine with just a static website where it's just plain old-fashioned HTML. My publishing site is like that. It doesn't need a blog. It doesn't have a blog. It's not my primary site. It doesn't need some of those fancy bells and whistles. It's more of an informational spot where people can go to see more about So Many Press. And moreover, if booksellers want to go and purchase things, that's the portal that they'd go through that. And I don't need to have anything that's got any extra bells and whistles behind the scenes for that kind of site. For an author, though, you probably do have a blog. So that's something that we have to think about. Okay, if you have a blog, then that means we need to look at platforms that are going to allow you how to blog. How do you do this? Are you doing video? Well, okay, what platforms are going to work well with video? Which platforms are not going to work well with video? All those kind of things you want to consider when you're going in. And generally, when people are getting a new site, they're going to be overwhelmed. Even if it's something super simple, if for no other reason, then folks tend to get a little, and rightfully so, scared because all of a sudden now I'm up for the entire planet to see everything that's out there, and I'm going to have this site that's out there, even if it's a single page, sheet about a book. People tend to get a little, anxious about it. And as designers, we try to talk people off that ledge. You know how it goes when somebody's publishing a book, especially for the first time. You're so anxious. You're so worried. You're so overwhelmed. And by the time you've made it to a couple books down, you're just like, oh, yeah, we're coming up to pub. I've got to deal with this, and this, and you've lost some of that anxiety. Websites can be the same way.
All right. So The essentials. There are essentials you have to have, and there's some key questions you really have to ask yourself before you really go forward. And that starts with, what do you want your website to do? And I think that really would be one of those core little goodies that you talked about. All right, as we went in the break, I threw out the 3 initials, CMS. So let's reveal what CMS is, why it's important, and what it's all about.
Okay. So CMS stands for Content Management System. And what a content management system is it is a backend to a website where you can go in and you can put in your blog posts, you change your web page content, all that kind of stuff, and it'll affect different elements on your site. Okay. CMSs are really handy for people who are not designers and who are not coders. Okay. So that means that as a lay user, I have an interface that I can go in that has a little text window in there, and I can say, okay, I want to write my blog post. And I write my blog post in there, I copy and paste it in from somewhere else. And I click on publish, and it shows up on my website, and it looks pretty and looks like the rest of the website. Or I need to go in and I need to change my About Me page. So I click on the pages in there, and I go to my About Me, and I have, again, this nice little text editor that doesn't look anything like my site. It looks a little bit like Word, kind of a watered-down version of Word. And I change my stuff, and I click on publish, and my site updates. Okay? This saves you from having to have what used to be a very common problem, not a problem, but a common thing that folks had to go through was whenever they wanted to make a change to their website, they had to contact their webmaster, because that was the person who wrote the code, and unless you knew how to code your website, you had to contact someone even for, hey, we need to change a name, or we need to change a typo, or we need to add or remove a product or a sale item, whatever. They had to contact their webmaster. They had to make that change and update it. It was something that was time-consuming and very costly, because every time you contact your webmaster, you either were getting billed by the hour, or that webmaster had some sort of monthly or annual deal to where you could make X number of changes for whatever they billed you for it. With a CMS, you don't have so much that. By the time you're contacting your webmaster is when you're reskinning or basically redesigning your website, or if something is broken on there. Another nice part about a CMS is if you do completely change how the site looks, all of your content will stay the same. So all your text on there is the same. You don't have to re-input all that kind of stuff.
All right, so there's a simplification to it, and it's something that once the author takes control, they can do some of these things themselves versus always paying someone to do it for them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Well, that sounds like a really good idea to me.
Yeah, and the big ones that are out there are Joomla, WordPress, Squarespace. Those are all very popular CMSs. They give you varying levels of control over your site.
Well, as someone who is in and out of the back ends of my sites, I mean, I don't get involved in design. The people who are involved with that, I just say I need to have this, or can we figure out how to do this? But I sure want to be able to access very quickly to drop in content. And it's in some kind of a template that there's a consistency that I don't have to worry about how it's all going to fall through. I just have to get the stuff up there. I think that's really important.
It takes the headache out of having a website and updating a website.
Which is critical. And and again, I think all our listeners need to understand that if you have something like, and both Nick and I have websites that are publishing related, where we have our publishing companies up there, that they don't need any action on them except for you update them when you have new books. Or if there's any changes in policies. Otherwise, they just go mind their own business. And there, I mean, you could direct them. You could have, I would recommend that you put on that kind of site, if you have one, the author website. If it's just you, I would put your author website that they could go over and see who you are. if they want to.
Yeah.
If you're a publishing company that you have a whole bunch of authors, if it's a few, you could certainly do that. But that could become overwhelming too. But for most of us here, if we're publishing other people's books, it's going to be just a few versus dozens and dozens, and you can get away with that. Otherwise, what you do need is all the action on your personal website. And I am radical about my belief that a website should be in the author's name. And if you can't get your own name, you put your name and add author after it to get the .com, just to make it easier for that. So you mentioned Squarespace. So that's one of the new players. So let's talk about WordPress, which everybody knows.
Everyone knows WordPress.
Yeah, I'm certainly mine are up on WordPress at this point. But let's talk about some comparisons and why an author, especially someone who's just starting on this path or maybe doing some repurposing or starting a new one, because you don't always have to have one website, right?
Right, yeah. Sometimes you have multiples.
Yeah. So what is Squarespace? I almost said square pants. I can't believe I did that. Bob.
Squarespace is a CMS. Okay, so like WordPress and Joomla, it's a CMS. Squarespace is a little bit different, though. They are newer. They're a little bit more evolved, I would go so far as to say, than some of the older platforms that are out there. One of the things that makes Squarespace different is it's paid for. For example, WordPress is free. It's freeware. You can put it on any site you want, all that kind of stuff. Squarespace is not. Squarespace is a monthly service, and it is completely hosted on their cloud hosting. Okay. What that allows Squarespace to do is give you much higher level of service. It also allows them to create and manage products that are only on their environment and therefore have a significantly higher level of reliability because it's on their system. The other big differences between the two are with WordPress, you do have slightly more control on a design aspect. On a WordPress, what you're usually paying a designer to do is to build a theme for your site is what it's called, and a theme can have multiple different types of page types in there, and when you're putting content in your pages and all that kind of stuff, you're just saying, I want you to use this theme page, I want this to be this theme page, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas with Squarespace, you start with one of their out-of-the-box templates, and you can completely reskin and customize it. So there's quite a bit that you can do with the site, but there is slightly more control, generally speaking, over a WordPress site.
Okay, hold on to that. We're going to come, Nick. Hold on to that. We're going to come back to that. Take one more break, and then we'll find out
everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles, and we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Since 1987, Color House Graphics has set the standard for quality book production. Whether you decide to print a small quantity of books or need a large print run, depend on Color House to help you. You'll receive professional help and advice the moment you reach one of our representatives. If you mention hearing about us on your guide to book publishing with Judith Briles, we will provide you a discount on the first order you place. To speak with a project manager, call us toll-free at 800-454-1916 or visit us at www.colorhousegraphics.com.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
You know, we always do some kind of a plug. You hear our commercials as we go through. So I get to do a plug for the Book Shepherd, and that's me. But I have my big annual event coming up towards the end of August, and there are 4 spots left in it. And the dates are August 27th through the 29th. All the information is on the bookshepherd.com website. This is for Judith Briles, Book Publishing Unplugged. The first day on the 27th, we are going to be deep diving into all my favorite gizmos and gadgets and things that will make you as an author, your book sales, positioning, and your platform soar in the process. The next 2 days, we have a really fun, off-the-wall creativity exercise that you won't believe by the time you're done. You'll giggle, you'll laugh, you'll hoot, and you'll come away with some amazing ahas, and it will allow the true little kid spirit come out. And then we really get into some marketing strategies and speaking strategies, and I'm going to show you, I will hot seat several people and push your books out to over 1 million people within 10 minutes and show you how to do that. So if you're interested, if you want to really soar at what you're doing with your book, whether you have it out or you're in the process, you want to come to Judith Briles Unplugged. The dates are August 27th through 29th. And questions, just call me directly. And here is my personal phone number. It's 303-885-2207 if you want to claim one of those 4 spots. With me today is Nick Taylor, one of my favorite people. He will be at the Unplugged event on Saturday to be available to answer any questions about websites, about design, about some of the things that he does, and ebooks when we're there. And that we're talking today about websites, and we're just kind of opening up a new platform that certainly was new to me just a few weeks ago called Squarespace. And Nick, I don't know how long you've been aware about it, but you've really become quite an advocate for it.
I have. I've known about it for a couple of years. I had a good friend of mine whose WordPress website got malware or crashed. I can't remember what all happened, and he finally threw in the towel and was like, I'm done. I hate this platform. I'm finished. And he switched over to Squarespace and has absolutely loved it ever since. And I have had several clients that have gone through it, and so I've gotten a chance to go in there and play around on the back end and play around with that site. And I think it is just the cat's meow. I think it's fantastic. In 5 years, will it be the cat's meow? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. You know, we thought WordPress and all those were going to stay around forever.
Yeah, of course.
There's always something new. So right now, I think it is just absolutely fantastic.
There is always something new. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. Always something new in the process. And I think that's really what's important. You've got to stay on the alert, changes, and you have to also be receptive that maybe what you're doing now is at an expiration date. You know, and I think we all need to look at that. Is it working, or is it not working? Do you need to fine-tune it, or do you need to trash it? It's always an important thing to ask.
It is. Well, and I'm going to say in design standards and design, things that are going on in the web design world are always changing. I had a client recently who was told that, he's like, well, I got my last website, which I think was the Joomla site. He was like, I was told that site was going to be good for 20 years. And it's like, no, probably not. And he's having to completely rebuild his site about 5 years later, which is about right when technology's changed, design, things have changed. And this is kind of how it goes.
And it does change, which is kind of fun, which I like. All right, so let's talk about costs, Nick, and going in, because I know I have spent a frickin' fortune on websites. I have. Not a few $100s, thousands of dollars on websites. So tell me, what's the routine cost? What should you expect to pay when you're expecting here? And how does this compare with some of the other options that you're talking about?
Okay. So these numbers that I pulled, just so people know, the two primary numbers when we're talking about, one I pulled from Squarespace's site, just so I can do a comparison right on their site. And the other one I pulled, there's a book called the Graphic Artist Hand Guild handbook, and that has numbers and stuff in there that are nationally averaged, all that kind of fun stuff. So basically, when we look at a Squarespace site, your hosting per year, if you get their basic membership, which is just fine for your average author, is going to be $96 for the year, which is not too bad. An email account, you're going to want to get an email account that has your author, that has your website at the end of it. They don't provide email, but Gmail does, and for $50 a year, you can have a Gmail account that has your at JudithBriles.com or at NicholasTaylor.com. You probably don't want to use our website, but your own website on there.
Right.
And then a domain, you're going to be running about $20 a year. Your first year with Squarespace, they do include a domain. But after that, it's $20 a year, which is a pretty standard fee. To develop a WordPress site, what my standard bill is for your base average author site, that's a blog, some pages that are in there, maybe a little e-commerce in there if they have an item that they want to sell, that would come in at $500 to design that site and to skin that site and customize that WordPress, that Squarespace theme, and then to teach the author how to use it. Okay? So that brings you up to a grand total of $666. Okay, so not too shabby. If I were to go with another provider, and these numbers that I pulled from my hosting and everything were pulled from GoDaddy.com.
Yes.
So for the GoDaddy basic membership, for the hosting is $85 a year. Right now, they're always running different specials. So for right now, that's what it is. Email is included in that. And then around $20 a year for your domain. Your first year, whenever you buy a new domain, you'll see them on sale. You can get them for $5 or $6. But it's those year 2 and 3 where you start paying your normal, around $20 per domain. Now, the Graphic Artist Hand Guild book says for a dynamic site, which is a mobile-friendly site, that the base cost is $6,000 to have that site done. I've seen some WordPress developers that'll do a theme for around $4,000, but those numbers are pretty in line with what I've seen a lot of folks pay. Sometimes you can get around $1,000 or $2,000 to have that site developed, but it's just going to kind of vary on what you have. And since I don't know who your developer is or the part of the country you're in where prices can vary, I'm just going off of their bill, which brings it up to a total of $6,105 even. So it's quite a bit of money to have that site done. The other thing that I looked at.
Why is it so expensive? I mean, because I have spent a few $1,000s on my sites over the years. I mean, sometimes multiple times, when we've gone in for full gutting and redoing. Why is it so freaking expensive? I mean,
they're very time consuming. Websites are, especially any theme building, is very time consuming. It's not easy work to do. People who work in the theme developing space all day long are still like, it's easy, but it's because they do it all day long. There's not a huge amount of us out there who actually will do a WordPress theme. A lot of people won't even deal with them. Same with Joomla and all of those. They can be very tedious. And there's other people who love developing those sites. Don't get me wrong. But they're very labor-intensive. There's not a huge amount of people who do them, and so the market will yield those higher prices. And that's basically why you're coming down on that price point on that one. Whereas with the Squarespace, they're making it up over the course of all of these many people who are paying their monthly service. So they're constantly making money off of it. So for them, they're able to offset that development cost by having their monthly service on there. Whereas your web designer doesn't have that. They build your theme, and they upload it, and they teach you how to put a blog post on there, and you go on your way. Whereas with Squarespace, they're more partnering with you.
My experience is, though, that authors who have had, the customized website done on a WordPress theme or wherever they do it, it's not a one-shot deal. It's not that, to me, and certainly not for me, it's not that you develop, okay, we're done, and thank you, give me your check and thank you, and we're out of here. I go back, I'm interacting once or at least a couple of times a month. For things that need to be fine-tuned or tweaked or added, or something's not right, or blah, 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 blah. And, so I see money going, I see money going out every month. The thing that what I'm interested in and intrigued with your whole deal on the Squarespace deal is that, that if you can bring it in and have a scenario where you can have customizing going on. That's what I'm hearing. There is, even though they've got a gazillion templates, there is a way to do some customization here. Is that not correct? Or did I hear that wrong?
No, that's correct. We take, I tell clients when they're looking at the WordPress theme, to pick a theme that has like a kind of navigation and overall like design and feel they like, and then we completely reskin it, change out colors, swap out fonts, all that, images, all that kind of stuff. So it's their site. It's just you're kind of starting with the bones. And they're very pretty bones because Squarespace wants you to know what a finished site looks like. But, we start with the bones and we change it. And I teach authors how they can go in and tweak everything on their site. And that's the beauty. When these sites are done, an author could do this off the shelf themselves. They could go in and customize this. If you're not tech savvy, you may kind of hate your life, or design savvy. But, if you've already had this done and you need to go in and tweak something or change something, it's something that at the end of knowing how to use Squarespace and after your 20 minutes of training on how to use this platform, you can go in and do that. Well, and if there's anything broken, you can email. So they have email and online support. You tell them, and it's free because it's part of your membership, and they go and fix if anything's broken, which is very, very, very rarely happens.
Oh, well, I love it when people fix them when they're broken. All right, we're going to be right back. Nick Taylor is our guest. We're talking websites and introducing you to a new source on AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. This is Judith Briles.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems, you want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher, or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today, 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, so in our final segment, we're going to look at some other things, designing with design, and maybe some e-commerce. So that we tie in. What's the best way, Nick, on a website to monetize for the store, the product? And, I have to tell you, it's almost a dilemma that what do you call those tabs? I mean, I hear these rules. You should only have so many tabs. On your header. You should only have so many. You should only have one word on it. That I don't know what you should and what you shouldn't. Can you help us out a little bit, or what your experience is as both an author and a designer?
For sure. So a lot of times when you hear a lot of those rules, we're speaking to generalized things. In general, you only want to have X. You only want to have this. But like most things in design, there's just as many examples that break the rule that there are that actually follows the rule. So you're going to want to really look and see what's out there. The more simplistic your navigation is, can be better, but at the same time, you don't want a navigation that's so simplistic that people can't find your content. It's always a balance. There's moderation in all things, whether it's simplicity or complexity. You want to do that. I've seen websites where there's like 3 or 4 rows of navigation tabs, and those sites are a bit of a bear to navigate. Now, when I've been on the site a few times, I know exactly which tab I want to go down. Sometimes they can be a little difficult. Conversely, I've also been on sites that have like 2 or 3 links that are up in their navigation, and I can't find squat, right? So you just want to try to keep that balance in mind. And when you're working with a designer, they'll tell you that. With an author, generally you have your home page, and your home page might be your blog. It might be the books that you've just released, whatever your home page is going to be, your standard landing page content. Then you'll generally have an about, your books. Then in your books in there, you link out to all the different places that they can buy it, a contact section. And if you do have, maybe your blog's not your home page, then you might have a blog tab, and then you'll have a contact tab. You may also have a store tab. If you're selling your book or you're selling some other product, you'll generally have a store tab on there, or a shopping cart, or whatever you decide to name it that works with your company, with your product. And then in that tab, people can go in. And there should be links to all these sites on different places. So if you're talking about your book, in some blog post, put a link to your books tab, into that page on your book. If you have multiple books out there, I would not give each book its own link on the navigation. I would say book. They hover over that or click on it, so they're going to bring them a page that has all your books on them that they can click down to an individual book page. Or if they hover over that link, it's going to bring down a list of books so that they can go and click on that book's page.
Mm-hmm. I totally support that. Yeah, I would rather have them go to a page where everything is laid out, because even if you just have one book, what I would suggest, especially if you have a really attractive layout of your book, for our listeners, if you have attractive layout, or if you have a little bit of whether you have call-outs within the interior, and it looks good, or if you have any illustrations, I would have your book designer send you a PDF and JPEG of an opening visual so that you can see that and drop it in so they can actually see what this baby looks like inside, not just, read it. That you can, and also I always recommend on that landing page is that you include a chapter or two that they can really scan through and look at and complete.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be chapter 1 and chapter 2. It could be maybe a juicy one on chapter 7. I mean, who knows? But something in there that gives them a little bit more than what maybe Amazon would show.
Yeah.
So that's my, it's a store. You know what? This is a store. So
it is.
You're selling. It doesn't mean that they may not be buying off your website. You may be linking them to Nook. And I'd suggest, you go ahead and put Barnes & Noble. You put Amazon on, and I would also put an image on your website for IndieBound. Then go in and find out about IndieBound, because what that does, it directs them to an independent bookstore in your zip code area, in anybody visitor's zip code area, and it'll tell you where to go to get the book, which I think is also cool. So
yeah, I think those are excellent ways of doing that. Yeah, because you want to make sure people can get to the vendor that they prefer to buy products through.
Exactly, because some people may not want to buy at Amazon. So give them a choice. I like choices. I've always been a choice person. All right, so what about, I don't think we can leave talking about websites, about all the widgets and the gadgets for all the SEO stuff. And how to, you mentioned in the first segment about the stagnant website. So how do we create this to make the Google gods love you? How do you like that?
One of the big, right? Yeah, for sure. So one of the things, and I'll just continue to use Squarespace as the example on it. They come out of the shelf mobile responsive. They're actually reflowable websites, which means that the website will change its look and appearance based on how big the browser is looking at it. If you take a Squarespace or any reflowable website and you click on the bottom corner of your browser, you can shrink it down and see what it's going to look like on an iPad or on a Fire. And you can shrink it down even further and see exactly what it's going to look like on a phone. Okay, so that's a fully responsive design. Responsive design, Google likes. Any sort of mobile friendly, if you have like separate mobile versions of your site and tablet versions of your site, Google likes those too, same amount. When it comes to SEO, there are a lot of professionals that do that, but it's maximizing your content, it's putting stuff into your page's head, it's targeting specific keywords in different layers of headings. We see a lot of SEO coming in there, and even in image naming, when we're going in and naming an image that's going on our website. That also has an SEO element to it. It's very important. On a static site, SEO is relatively easy to do because we're building everything code up. On, a WordPress, there's usually extra plugins that you can put in to get that. When it comes to SEO optimization and being able to optimize the site, Squarespace comes with that out of the box. You can put in all that kind of stuff, and they don't do it for you. Like, it doesn't go through and analyze and say, hey, this is the publisher who's talking about management, and they put in all the stuff for it. No, you got to make sure you're using your proper keywords and putting it in your head and your descriptions and things like that. Mm-hmm. But with most of these sites, it's pretty easy to do.
Well,
I'm sorry, what's that?
What's up? Oops, we lost me. All right,
I'm
back.
Yeah, you're back. All
there
right.
we go. It's internet connections. For every blog you put up, for every article you put up, for every newsletter you put up, you should be putting up keywords and keyword phrases that will bring in SEO attendance. What about, Nick, putting up that keeps action going on? For example, I know that I have on both the Book Shepherd and the AuthorU websites that I've got Twitter feeds running. There's Facebook feeds running. I've got on the Book Shepherd site, my Clout score shows up. Mm-hmm. What about those kind of running feeds? What kind of goose or juice do you get from those?
You can get a little bit of juice from them. The problem with a lot of those type of feeds, generally speaking, I will go out and say I'm not an SEO expert, do design, all that kind of stuff. There's folks who specialize in this. But in general, those type of feeds are pulling from content from somewhere else. And so they may or may not be getting you anything just because it's a live thing that when you go on the site, that's when it's going out and fetching that data. And so it's not necessarily searchable by a lot of the websites. Some of those widgets may be designed to allow that to happen, but generally speaking, they're not going to be. This is a problem that had come around when folks were using outside blogging platforms, and then they were just tying that feed into their website. And then they're like, oh, I have a blog on my website. And they're just tying that feed on there, and that website got absolutely no SEO benefits from that because that blog was not hosted on there, and Google spiders could not find it, didn't know it was there. So really, they were trying to do all their SEO across two websites, the blog and then their main website, and then ended up being losers on it. So on that kind of stuff, you can run into that.
Okay, so the question is, what do the Google spiders like?
They like stuff that's on your site. They do like to see keywords. They like to see people linking to you. That's huge if people are linking to you. They treat social media a little bit differently, and they go after that separately, and that's up to, that's kind of how Google handles all their algorithms and stuff. But they do want to see if a site's being linked to by a bunch of other websites. If there is activity on the site, sometimes it'll go into a blog and be able to see some of the commenting and some of the things that are going on in there. It's definitely looking at the keywords inside of the blog. It's looking at the headings that you're using. It's looking at the images. A lot of times, and this is something that Google's always changing its algorithm, they're never really open about what they're doing, which makes sense because then we'd game the system. But, they do tend to like images. Video is huge. Google loves it. And you can embed video. You can embed a YouTube into your site, and that will increase your ranking. Because it searches its own networks first. It searches YouTube first because Google owns YouTube.
Right. So, but if there's your YouTube site is kind of stagnant anyway, you won't get much juice out of that. Is that correct? You need
not generally speaking,
viewing?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily. You can get away with, like, if you're doing, if the only videos you have are, when someone comes on your page and you're talking about your book or whatever, you can target those really highly well. That was probably said very well. You could do a very good job of targeting those, and people would still be able to find your site and still be able to find that kind of content. That does still work. But, anytime you can incorporate video is going to help.
All right, so video is hot. So keep doing them in little ones. And those of you who are on Twitter, find out about Vine because you want to take advantage of that. There's a huge retweet going on that. And with that, Nick, we're going to have to wrap up. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you at Judith Briles Unplugged at the end of August, and I hope a lot of our listeners come too. Next week, we're being deep diving into character development with fiction with award-winning Mark Stevens, who just won the top Colorado Fiction Book Award. And with that, it's another episode. Keep writing, keep publishing. This is Judith Briles.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week,